Hi, friends. Avery here. My name is Avery Caldwell. I'm 30 years old, and if you ask my parents, I'm a woman on the edge because my basement is colder than their judgment and my bottles have better labels than their reasons. I didn't always have a house that looks like a film set and a cellar that hums at a perfect 55 degrees. 2 years ago, after a promotion at the investment firm, I bought a 1920s Victorian in West Hartford. Original crown, molding, creaky charm, and this was the hook, the old stone cellar. The previous owner used it for holiday decor. I stood in that chill air and saw something else, a room that could hold time. I fell in love with wine on a student semester in Bordeaux. What started as souvenirs, 3 dusty bottles wrapped like contraband in my suitcase, became rituals, classes in viticulture, Saturdays volunteering at vineyard harvests in Connecticut. I'm WSET Level 2, studying for Level 3. I drink, on average, 2 glasses a week, 3 if Ethan cooks. I log everything in a cellar journal, what I opened, who I shared it with, and the food it loved best. It's not about numbing life, it's about tasting it. Over 8 years, I curated about 800 bottles. Not all expensive. Many are $20 weeknight beauties that sing with roast chicken. But a few are opera, a 1982 Margot I won at auction for $600, now worth far more. A 2005 Romanée Conti I will never open alone. A case of 2009 Leoville Poiferre Sleeping Like Royalty. The cellar is climate controlled, racks custom built, lighting warm and reverent. It's a room where ambition ages into patience. When my parents, Harold and Marianne, visited for the first time since I finished renovations, I imagined pride. We'd tour the house, then I'd pour a modest burgundy to go with dinner Ethan had planned for later. Instead, we descended the stairs, and I watched their faces harden like concrete setting too fast. Marianne stopped at the threshold, one hand on her pearls like an alarm button. "Avery, what is all this?" Her voice did the careful, soft thing people use when they already hate the answer. I showed them the zones, Pinot here, Bordeaux there, whites along the back wall, the humidity gauge, the tasting counter, my inventory app, the printer neat labels I'd made on a rainy Sunday because it relaxed me. I told them about acidity and soil, about why granite and gravel change how a grape breathes. This is what I do when I love something. I study it. They didn't step in, didn't touch a bottle. Harold scanned the room like he was searching for a fire exit. Marianne's eyes glistened. "No normal person needs 800 bottles of alcohol," she said. "This is hoarding mixed with addiction." There are sentences you remember by temperature. That one hit me like the first cold minute in the cellar, the exact degree when you're not sure if you're shivering or furious. "I drink 2 glasses a week," I said evenly. "The collection is the hobby." Harold exhaled through his nose. "Your grandfather kept lists too. Every whiskey he sampled. Addicts write it all down to pretend they're in control. My grandfather died of liver failure at 58. I will never forgive how some people use a tragedy like a flashlight to search your private drawers." "I'll open something light for dinner," I tried. "You'll see." "We will not taste your disease," Marianne snapped, and the word echoed against stone. I led them upstairs. We sat in my own living room like an office conference, the kind where the outcome is decided and the meeting is theater. Marianne dabbed at her eyes. Harold folded his hands. "Sweetheart," Marianne started, "your sister Monica is in that tiny rental with 3 kids. Patrick works so hard they can't make it stretch anymore. You, alone, in all this space, with that downstairs. It isn't right." There it was, soft as a lullaby, sharp as a blade. The thesis. My sister and I are not enemies. We are complicated. Monica teaches history. She also has a taste for big gestures on small budgets. The truck that looked like a commercial. The beach vacation that lived on a credit card. She's loud about family and also loud about what family should give her. Lately, that includes my spare bedroom, my backyard, my kitchen, and apparently, my cellar. "What does Monica have to do with my collection?" I asked. Harold leaned forward, the way he used to when we were kids, and he wanted us to accept "because I said so" as wisdom. "You need help, real help. You could move home while you get treatment. Get your life back on track. And this house, it would be better used by a family in a healthy season. Monica and Patrick have already been looking at schools nearby. I stared at the mantel because I didn't trust my face. You're suggesting what? Give them my house. Temporarily or permanently, We've spoken to a lawyer, Marianne said, voice trembling like courage. There are options when adult children need intervention. Conservatorship, guardianship. We don't want to go that route, but if you can't see what this collection really is. I stood. When you love people, you give them gentle exits. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not giving anyone my house. You need to leave. Marianne cried like I'd slapped her. Harold gathered her with a look of pity meant for me. Before they walked out, she pressed a brochure into my hand. Soft paper, hard message. High-functioning alcoholics. A discreet path to recovery. Ethan arrived 20 minutes later, carrying Rosemary and the stupid grin he assumes will fix anything. How'd it go? He asked, then read the room. The brochure. My face. Okay, not great. I told him everything. The words felt surreal in the air, like speaking a nightmare. He listened the way he always does, not interrupting, not problem-solving, until I asked. When I finished, he took my hand. We'll handle it, and we'll eat dinner first. We tried. We plated the roast chicken and opened sparkling water like it was a toast to restraint. But the evening did not stay in the house. By morning, the campaign had already begun. A text from Monica. Hey sis, Mom and Dad told us. That cellar looked like a TV show. This could be a wake-up call. We can help with the hard part. Think of the kids. Playroom in the basement once we clear. You know, everything. Patrick, practical as ever, found some great studios near your parents. Want links? Then Marianne, hourly, with locations of AA meetings I didn't ask for. Harold, with articles about collectors who mask dependency. My aunt posting publicly about a beloved family member battling demons. Demons, apparently, that come with corks. I started doing what my job taught me to do when the numbers go sideways. Document. Screenshots. Voicemails saved. Emails to a folder named Seller, because sometimes life needs tags to be survivable. When my phone buzzed with a name I wasn't expecting, I almost didn't answer. Lena Duarte, Ethan's ex, who still follows me on Instagram because the internet refuses to let any of us go. Your mom just called me, she said, half amused, half appalled. She asked if I'd join an intervention. I told her you drink less than I do, and that your tasting notes are the only reason I've ever liked Riesling. I laughed, but it came out brittle. Thanks, I said. I think my parents are about to turn care into a crowbar. Document everything, Lena said. They're building a case, not making a point. That night, I changed the locks, set up additional cameras, and added two-factor authentication to accounts I'd never thought needed it. I wanted to believe common sense would bring my family back to me. I also wanted to believe in Santa until I was 6. We all grow out of something. On the 7th day of articles and pity, my phone lit up with a photo from Monica, my front porch, my spare key in her palm. Mom gave it to me, you know, in case of emergency. We'll come by when you're at work to help remove triggers, okay? It'll be less traumatic. She'd already decided what I was and what I needed. In her story, I was a problem that came with square footage. A woman drowning in Pinot who should be grateful someone was willing to take her house as a life raft. I typed, deleted, typed again. In the end, I sent 4 words that felt like sandbags against a flood. Do not enter, ever. If this were a different channel, I'd end here. Cut to black, lingering note. You won't believe what happens next. But this is my life, and next came faster than I could brace. The key in her hand wasn't a threat. It was a schedule. And the cellar? The cellar was about to become a crime scene dressed as love. The day after Monica's key in the palm photo, my phone learned a new trick, buzzing like a trapped wasp. Notifications stacked on top of each other. Family group chat, aunt side chat, church-adjacent people I hadn't seen since braces. The message was always the same, dressed in different fonts. We love you. We're worried. Let us help you do the right thing. I did the only thing that gave me oxygen. I drafted an email titled Boundaries and sent it separately to Harold, Marianne, Monica, and Patrick. I am not struggling with alcohol use. I drink 2-3 glasses per week, often less. My cellar is a collection, not consumption. You do not have permission to enter my home for any reason. If you have concerns, put them in writing. Do not contact my friends, colleagues, or Ethan about me. If you enter my property or attempt to remove items, I will call the police. I read it to Ethan aloud, each line like a plank laid down over a ravine. Too harsh? I asked. Clear isn't harsh, he said. It's clear. 30 minutes later, Marianne replied, avoiding every plank. Sweetheart, addiction isolates. These walls you're building are the disease talking. We will always choose your life over your anger. Harold sent a link to a podcast episode about perfectionism as a symptom. Monica responded with a heart emoji, then 3 photos of her kids at a park. Then, they keep asking when they can see Aunt Avery's big house. The basement would be such a safe playroom once we get all the glass out. Glass. That's what she saw downstairs. Thousands of dollars and years of patience reduced to sharp edges and danger. I blocked the family group chat. I created a notes file called What Actually Happened and wrote down dates, times, exact phrases. Because the mind is a generous editor. It softens or exaggerates. Paper doesn't. At work, rumors moved like smoke under doors. It started with the head tilt in the break room. Then my boss, Sharon, invited me to touch base. She had a folder on the table, HR style. Your mother has called a few times, she said gently, as if she were breaking me bad news about myself. She's worried you need time off. My laugh was a bark. My mother thinks my thermometer is a gateway drug, I said. I slid my tasting app across the table like evidence at trial. 2 glasses last week. Total. I raised $5,000 for the food bank at a tasting last month. Sharon, I'm fine at my job and also fine. She looked at the charts, then at me. I have to document the calls, she said, but I believe you. For 20 seconds, I wanted to hug her, then remembered boundaries apply all directions. That night at my house, Ethan made arroz con pollo while I sorted a crate of Piedmont Nebbiolo, thin skins, and granite perfume. You could stay at my place a few days, he said, sliding a pepper across the cutting board. Give them less surface area. I won't be chased out of my own home, I said. It sounded brave. It felt like putting a teacup in front of a wave. My phone rang with an unknown number. Normally I let those die. Something told me to answer. Ms. Caldwell? A male voice, smoothing itself like a tablecloth. This is Ralph from Vintner's Exchange. We've scheduled a partial pickup for tomorrow. Selection list here. 30,000 payout on arrival. Wanted to confirm someone will be present. My mouth went dry. Who scheduled this? Your brother, he corrected himself hastily. Apologies, Ms. Hale. Monica Hale, representing you. A paper shuffle. Says you're in a program but have authorized liquidation of trigger items. Trigger items. I closed my eyes, saw Monica's palm with the key resting like a stolen sun. There is no pickup, I said. If anyone arrives, it will be considered attempted theft and the police will be called. Please send me whatever documentation you were given. Ralph emailed immediately. A letter of authorization with my name, signed in a hand that was almost mine. A list that read like a map of my heart. 1982, Margot. The Romane Conti, the case of '09. I forwarded it to my lawyer with a subject line that tasted metallic. Forgery attempt number 1. Ethan leaned against the counter, the kind of stillness he uses when he's holding in a flood of words. You need more cameras, he said. And steal the back door. The locksmith came at 9 the next morning with a toolkit and opinions. People think smart locks are paranoid, he said, installing the new system. I think they're seatbelts. He handed me a stack of fresh codes and an app. Don't share with anyone, not even Mom. We didn't. But Monica's campaign didn't need my doors to get inside the world. By Friday, Aunt Denise had posted a soft focus graphic. Pray for those battling silently. Uncle Robert commented, Real adults admit when they're in trouble. Cousin Ashley, 16 and swimming in other people's definitions, DM'd me. Is it true? Mom says you drink breakfast wine. I typed out the only thing I drink in the morning is coffee strong enough to file taxes and didn't send it. Instead, I replied, I'm okay. Don't believe everything grown-ups say to feel important. Lena texted screenshots of a Facebook page Marianne had made. Hope for Avery. Studded with childhood photos of me holding root beer like an omen. Captions read like obituaries written by cowards. She used to be so bright. Addiction steals the best of us. I filed a takedown notice and sent my cease and desist template again. Marianne's reply, it comforts people to pray. Why are you against comfort? I did not answer because I'm old enough to know some questions arrive without ears. A pause, then a new tactic, false gentleness. Marianne called, with her voice wrapped in gauze. "We've been talking to a counselor," she said. "We mishandled this. Could you come for dinner? Just us. No surprises." Harold got on the line. "We want to understand," he said. "We want to apologize." Ethan watched my face do calculus. He shook his head once. I ignored it. "Okay," I said. "Saturday, 1 hour. If anyone besides you is there, I leave." "Of course," Marianne breathed. "Just family." The words "just family" feel like a lullaby until you realize someone intends to sing you to sleep. Saturday morning, Monica texted me a photo of a casserole cooling on her counter. "Can't wait for tonight. The kids made you cards." I replied, "You are not invited. If you show up, I will leave." She sent 3 crying emojis and one of praying hands. Then, "You're breaking Mom's heart." I spent the afternoon preparing the only way I know, like a trial. I charged my phone. I printed the email thread. I opened my safe and looked at the thick folder with title house, deed, plus insurance like it was a talisman. Then I put it back because talismans are for stories, and this is a plan. On the way out, my neighbor Christopher waved from his porch. "You okay?" he called, not nosy. Concern wrapped in small-town manners. "Family thing," I said. "If you see a moving truck at my place and I'm not home, call me." He lifted his phone, on speed dial. At 5:57 p.m., I parked outside my parents' house. The blinds were open. I could see legs. Too many shoes piled near the foyer. 4 extra cars lined the curb like an audience. My stomach recognized the shape of betrayal before my brain framed it. I texted Ethan. "There are definitely other people here." He called immediately. "Leave," he said. "You promised yourself." I stared at the front door, at the wreath Marianne keeps up year-round because she thinks welcome should be evergreen. I thought about 6-year-old me on those steps with a skinned knee, about 16-year-old me slamming that door after curfew, about 30-year-old me with a cellar that makes people confess who they are. "I'll record," I said, "and if they try anything, I call 911. When I walked in, the air told the truth before anyone spoke. A living room full of folding chairs and faces. A woman in a navy blazer holding a leather folder that read Avery Intervention. Monica's eyes shining the way people shine when they believe righteousness makes them pretty. Patrick handing out printed statements like programs at a play. I found my phone's voice memo with one thumb. The specialist introduced herself, Dr. Karen Matthews. "Your family loves you very much," she said, her smile trained like a weapon. "We're here because addiction doesn't just hurt the drinker." Behind her, on the coffee table, a manila folder was labeled Property Transfer, Trust. I didn't need to open it to know my house was inside, translated into legalese and good intentions. Marianne wouldn't meet my eyes. Harold stared at the rug. Monica angled her body between me and the door like a bouncer at a church. I pressed record. "Okay," I said, and my voice sounded like a blade finally remembering its metal. "If you want a performance, let's make a record." The first statement began, tears and tremble rehearsed to the comma. The second called my cellar a temple for demons. By the third, Uncle Robert was holding my elbow, just to keep you present. I felt my phone in my palm, smooth and certain. I pictured the cellar at home, humming at 55 degrees, loving me the way inanimate things do. By continuing to be themselves while you figure out how to be yours. "Touch me again," I said to Robert quietly, "and the cops arrive faster than your next sentence." He let go. Dr. Matthews smiled wider. "Resistance is part of the illness," she cooed. "Good," I said. "Then you'll recognize what happens next." I turned for the door. Monica moved to block me, the key to my life still somewhere in her pocket. And from behind the couch, Patrick lifted a blue folder, thick with documents, the kind you sign away your future with. Distance in a house can be measured in feet or years. I crossed both. Outside, my phone found 911. Inside, someone began to pray. It sounded less like faith and more like formatting, for when they tell this story later about the sister who chose wine over family. They'll leave out the part where family chose my house over me. By Sunday morning, the video from the intervention already had an audience, not online yet, but in whispers, forwarded texts, pitying emojis. Lena sent me a screenshot of a Facebook caption. "Please keep Avery in your prayers. She left before she could accept help, but God isn't finished with her." Posted by my mother. Underneath, Monica commented, "We'll always be here when she's ready to get healthy." The post had 187 likes and a few dozen praying hands reactions. I locked myself in my house and didn't go to work Monday. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Ethan kept trying to convince me to stay at his place in New Haven for a while, but I couldn't. Leaving now would be like confirming their narrative, that I was unstable, incapable, afraid. Instead, I installed 4 new cameras and upgraded my security system to 24/7 cloud backup. The locksmith, different guy this time, offered small talk. Family fights, huh? Don't worry, these locks are fortress grade. I laughed, because that's what you do when you've cried too much to produce new tears. 4 days later, work called. My boss, Sharon, again. There was another call from your parents, Shame, she said carefully. They said you were checking into a facility in Vermont and asked about disability paperwork. Should we expect documentation? I inhaled slowly. Do not accept anything from anyone but me, I said. Then I went home early, opened a bottle of water, and watched the cellar cameras on my phone like a hawk stalking its own nest. Friday morning, Monix had texted, I know you're angry, but the only way through addiction is surrender. I didn't reply. She followed up an hour later. When will you be out of town again for work? Something in my gut froze solid. I scrolled up through our old texts and found it. 2 months ago, I'd mentioned a Boston client trip. 3 days. I hadn't canceled it. They were waiting for an opening, and that realization sat in my stomach like glass. I called Ethan immediately. I'm cutting the trip short, I said. If I don't answer your call, contact Christopher next door. He didn't ask questions. He just said, got it. Tuesday night, 8:15 p.m. Headlights flashed across my window. I wasn't supposed to be home yet. Christopher had called 20 minutes earlier. Your front door's open, lights on. You expecting someone? I wasn't. I parked quietly, engine off, and walked up the driveway. Monica's minivan and Patrick's truck. My door ajar. Laughter inside. My pulse hammered in my ears. I hit record on my phone before I stepped through. In the living room, open boxes stacked high, each labeled basement. In my cellar, Monica, Patrick, and 2 unfamiliar men loading bottles into crates. They were methodical, efficient, like a moving company that had done this before. What the hell are you doing? My voice didn't sound like mine. Monica looked up, startled, but not guilty, more like someone caught mid-favor. Oh my God, Avery, you're back early. She smiled the way people smile at toddlers mid-tantrum. We're helping, okay? Mom said you were ready to let go. This is a huge first step. Patrick held up an invoice sheet. Vintner's Exchange. They're paying $30,000 today. Great rate, by the way. I walked closer, reading the page upside down. They'd targeted my best vintages, the 1982 Margaux, the Romanée Conti, the case of 2009. Bottles that were supposed to celebrate things that hadn't even happened yet. Engagements, children, retirement. Now they were merchandise. Put everything back, I said, pulling out my phone. Monica rolled her eyes. Avery, listen. You'll thank us later. This isn't punishment. It's rehab funding. Patrick added, you can't keep pretending this is healthy. The 2 dealers started shifting uneasily. One whispered, we didn't know this wasn't authorized. You heard the lady, I said. Leave, now. Monica's tone turned sharp. You're calling the police? On family? Yes, I said, and pressed 911. Patrick swore under his breath. Monica's face darkened with something new. Not concern, not pity, but anger. You're proving our point, she hissed. This rage, this control, it's the addiction talking. She started filming me with her phone. For the intervention specialist, she said sweetly, to show your volatility. I almost laughed. It was so perfectly scripted. The police arrived in minutes. 2 officers, one older, calm, one younger, curious. The older one asked for identification. I handed over my license, the deed copy, and the invoice. The younger officer wandered down to the cellar. When he came back up, he said quietly to his partner, this looks professional, cataloged, temperature-controlled. This isn't a drinking problem. This is a collector. Monica tried to interject, waving a printout. She's sick. She keeps logs to convince herself she's fine. Addicts always do. The officer looked at her evenly. Ma'am, that's not how addiction works. You can't just declare someone unfit because you don't understand their hobby. They made Patrick and the 2 dealers unload every box, one by one. 3 bottles broken, one of them my 2012 Barolo. Patrick shrugged. Casualties of recovery. I wanted to hit him. Instead, I documented every shattered label, every second of his smirk. When the officers warned them about trespassing, Monica still wouldn't stop. You're choosing alcohol over us, she said, tears spilling on cue. Over your family. You'll regret this when you're alone. Maybe, I said, but at least it'll be my choice. They left under flashing lights, neighbors watching from porches. Christopher stood across the street, shaking his head. Inside, I sat on the floor of my cellar, surrounded by bottles that suddenly looked like hostages. My hands shook so badly I couldn't recork the broken one. Upstairs, my phone vibrated. Voicemails. Marianne, how could you do this to your sister? She was saving you. Harold, you've shown your true character. Family tries to help, and you call the cops. Patrick, the kids saw cops at Aunt Avery's house. You traumatized them. Monica, I forgive you. The disease makes people cruel. Ethan came that night with takeout and quiet. We sat on the couch eating cold lo mein while the security camera footage uploaded to the cloud. Do you think they'll stop now? He asked. No, I said. They've decided what story they want. Now they just need the ending. He hesitated. And what's your plan? I looked around my house, the one they'd tried to script me out of, and said, to make sure I'm the one who writes it. The next morning, I sent cease and desist letters through my lawyer. I installed motion alerts on all cameras, and I began a file labeled Family Incident, March 8th, with the footage, the invoice, the police report. Not because I wanted revenge, because somewhere deep down, I knew this wasn't the climax. It was the setup. The calm before Act 3, the part where help would come dressed like forgiveness. And when it did, I intended to be ready. 3 quiet weeks. No calls, no knocks, no pity posts. Silence. The kind that's supposed to feel like peace, but instead hums with tension. Ethan called it a honeymoon phase of chaos. They'll come back, he said. They always come back. I wanted to believe otherwise. I started to sleep through the night again, though the security camera pings still startled me. I even hosted a small charity tasting in my cellar. 15 guests, 5 wines, $5,000 raised for a local food pantry. Every pour, every toast was my middle finger to the idea that passion equals pathology. Then, one Thursday afternoon, my phone lit up. Mom. I almost declined it, but something, curiosity or masochism, made me answer. Her voice was soft, wet with practiced remorse. Avery, honey, I miss you. We all do. I've been thinking about how wrong we were. Could we please have dinner, just to talk? No ambushes, no cameras, I promise. I said nothing for several seconds. Behind her, I could hear plates clinking. Domestic, comforting sounds that once meant home. Then Dad's voice came on, gentler than I'd heard in months. We've been seeing a counselor. We handled things terribly. Please, just come. Saturday night. Just family. When he said just family, something inside me flinched. But hope is a stubborn animal. It never dies. It just changes costume. I agreed. 1 hour. Dinner only. If anyone besides you two is there, I said, I leave immediately. They swore on everything holy. Saturday evening, 6:15 p.m. I drove up their street in half light, the kind of suburban dusk where lawns glow green and windows flicker with TV blue. There were more cars than there should have been. Monica's truck, Patrick's minivan, Aunt Denise's Prius, Uncle Robert's sedan. 4 extra cars I didn't recognize. I texted Ethan. Too many cars. You might be right. He called instantly. Leave. Don't even go in. I'll record everything, I said. He swore under his breath. Please, just be careful. The second I walked in, I knew. The air had weight. Conversations died mid-sentence. 25 people in the living room, folding chairs arranged in a half-circle facing the couch. At the center, a woman in a navy blazer holding a leather folder labeled Avery's Intervention. My mother stood at her side, trembling, but not with surprise. My father sat rigid, staring at the floor. Monica's eyes glowed, vindication disguised as concern. Good evening, said the woman, stepping forward. I'm Dr. Karen Matthews. Your family loves you very much and wants to help you reclaim your life. The words slid off her tongue like a script she'd performed hundreds of times. I felt the phone in my pocket and pressed record. Of course you're recording, Monica muttered, arms folded. Dr. Matthews smiled, unbothered. That's fine. This is a safe space. She gestured for me to sit. I didn't. One by one, they began reading from prepared papers. Monica first. Avery, your addiction has changed you. You used to be my best friend. Now you're paranoid, defensive, alone. You called the police on family. You're sick and can't see it. Patrick next. The kids miss you. They ask why Aunt Avery loves her bottles more than them. Mom, voice breaking. I wake up every night terrified you'll drink yourself to death. I've already picked what I'll wear to your funeral. Dad, you're not the daughter I raised. The collection owns you now. Even Aunt Denise chimed in. Remember at Christmas 2019 you talked about wine for 20 minutes? That was the first sign. Then a final blow. Lena. She was sitting quietly near the window. When our eyes met, she looked regretful. They called me, she said softly. I didn't know they'd do this. I just said you drink responsibly, but they twisted it. Dr. Matthews raised her hand. Thank you, everyone. Avery, this isn't about judgment. It's about safety. She opened her folder and pulled out several documents. This, she said, is the treatment plan. It includes a 90-day inpatient program, property management during your absence, and financial guardianship to ensure stability. Monica stepped forward holding a thick packet. Property transfer agreement. You signed the house to me for safekeeping, she said. It's temporary. After a year sober, we can revisit ownership. I stared at the papers. My name was already printed on every line. Someone had practiced my signature. You tried to steal my house, I said. Dr. Matthews interjected smoothly. Denial often expresses as hostility. It's normal. Monica reached for my hand. Please, Avery, don't make us do this the hard way. That was when Uncle Robert moved toward the door, positioning himself like a guard. Sit down, he said softly. Just listen. I pulled out my phone, thumbed 911. Robert grabbed my arm. I looked at him. Not furious, not scared, just done. Let go, I said. Now. Dr. Matthews tried to mediate. Everyone, calm. Let me go, I repeated. He did. The entire room froze. I backed toward the door. Mom sobbed. Don't walk away, please. We can save you. Monica shouted. You'll regret this when you hit rock bottom. Dr. Matthews, ever calm, said, let her process. Rock bottom looks different for everyone. I opened the door, turned back once. Rock bottom, I said, was trusting any of you. Then I left. Outside, the night was cold enough to sting. I sat in my car shaking, not from fear, from disbelief that flesh and blood people could plot something so intricate under the flag of love. My phone buzzed with Ethan's text. You okay? On my way. When he arrived, I was still in the driver's seat, engine off. He opened my door gently. You recorded it? I nodded. He pulled me into his arms and said nothing for a long time, just held me, like the silence could be a shield. By Monday, it was online. A Facebook page titled Prayers for Avery's Recovery. Old photos. Captions like, Before the addiction took her. Extended family commenting hearts and verses. Worse, someone had posted my police report from the break-in. Monica's caption, she called the cops on family who were just trying to help. My inbox flooded with messages from colleagues, clients, even an old college professor. Are you okay? Do you need support? Is the story true? Sharon, my boss, called me into her office again. She was kind, but careful. The way companies are when reputation might be contagious. I explained everything. Showed her footage, documents, my drinking log. She sighed. Legally, you're fine. Emotionally, I'll get therapy, I said. That night, I emailed an attorney specializing in defamation and family fraud. Subject line, need help before they ruin my life completely. He replied within an hour, you're not crazy. They're building a paper trail. Let's start building yours. Days later, Dr. Matthews sent me an email herself. Your family's courage is inspiring. When you're ready to accept treatment, I'll be here. I replied once. I consume less than the CDC's definition of moderate drinking. What you staged was attempted theft. Her response came 5 minutes later. Denial with statistical manipulation is classic high-functioning alcoholism. Heartbreaking. I closed my laptop and laughed. A sharp, exhausted sound that echoed through the empty house. Then I poured myself one glass of wine, not to drown anything, but to reclaim what was mine. The cellar light glowed gold against stone. Every bottle around me was quiet, loyal, patient, everything my family wasn't. Still, I knew this wasn't over, because people who mistake control for care don't stop when you say no. They stop when they're forced to. And I had a feeling I'd find out just how far love could go when money was involved. 6 weeks. That's how long the quiet lasted. Long enough for me to start believing the storm had passed, or at least moved on to someone else's house. I went back to work full-time, started therapy, even smiled when Ethan joked that I should rename the cellar the Fortress. I tried, really tried, to believe it was over. Then on a gray Tuesday morning, my phone rang. Christopher, my neighbor. Avery, you home? No, I'm at the office. Why? There's a for sale sign in your yard. For a second, I thought he was kidding. He wasn't. And, there are people walking through your living room. My heart stopped. I hung up and drove like gravity didn't apply to me. 30 minutes later, I pulled up to my street, and there it was. Century 21, for sale. Open house today. A lockbox on my front door. Strangers strolling around my porch like it belonged to them. Inside, a realtor with a neat bun and clipboard looked startled to see me. Oh, you must be Mr. Hale. I'm Ms. Caldwell, I said, the owner. What's happening here? She blinked, then checked her notes. Oh dear. Your brother said you were in a rehab program. I'm so sorry. He signed all the documents. She showed me the listing agreement. It had my name and my forged signature, right next to temporary guardian, Monica Hale. It was almost perfect. Almost. The address on the rehab facility paperwork was real, but the letterhead wasn't. They'd built an entire narrative, right down to a fake intake date and a counselor's signature. Dr. Karen Matthews. I felt something in me break so cleanly it made no sound. And then I heard him. Monica's husband, Patrick, standing in the kitchen talking to a young couple. We're planning to renovate the basement, make it a playroom. The cellar used it as wine storage, but that'll all be cleared out. The cellar. He was calling me the cellar. When he saw me, he didn't flinch. Oh, you're back early, he said flatly. How was treatment? I pulled out my phone and started filming. You're done, I said. All of you. He rolled his eyes. You're making a scene. The realtor looked terrified now. Should I call the office? Yes, I said. And while you're at it, call the police. The officers arrived quickly. Same precinct, same older cop from before. When I explained, he frowned. You filed a restraining order, right? Yes. Then this is fraud on top of trespass. They took photos of everything. The sign, the forged paperwork, the lockbox drilled into my doorframe. While they worked, I stood in my own front yard shaking, watching potential buyers hurry back to their cars. Ethan arrived mid-chaos, winded from speeding. Tell me they didn't... They tried, I said, again. He didn't answer, just took my hand. The investigation unfolded faster than I expected, maybe because this time I had every receipt, every recording, every timestamp. Police obtained a warrant and searched Monica's house. What they found was a grotesque kind of ambition. Practice sheets of my signature. Blueprints for our new home, my house, annotated with remove cellar racks, kids' playroom, Ethan's office, guest bedroom. Emails with Dr. Matthews arranging the fake rehab documentation. Text threads with my parents discussing the transition timeline. My stomach turned when I saw a folder labeled Caldwell Liquidation Plan. They'd itemized everything. My furniture, my art, even my car. Monica had already quit one of her jobs. Patrick had applied for a home equity line of credit on my address. And my parents, they had called my HR department at least 6 times, reporting concern for Avery's mental fitness. There was a file documenting every call. They weren't just trying to steal my house. They were trying to erase me from it. The deeper the detectives dug, the worse it got. They found forged bank statements, loan applications, altered investment documents, a complete fake medical file with admission records signed by Dr. Matthews. Apparently, she'd told the judge in another county that I was institutionalized and therefore unable to manage personal affairs. A judge had granted temporary conservatorship to Monica. My parents had witnessed it. If Christopher hadn't called me about the for sale sign, the sale would have gone through. By the time I noticed, they would have owned everything. The trial came fast. My lawyer said the evidence was overwhelming. The prosecutor laid it out like a true crime documentary. 1. Create a false narrative of addiction. 2. Establish a fake paper trail of instability. 3. Obtain conservatorship through fraud. 4. Sell Avery's assets. 5. Transfer proceeds to Monica. All of it, for a house worth maybe $450,000 and a wine collection worth another $100,000. When the judge read the charges, Monica looked defiant. Patrick looked scared. My parents just looked small. Dr. Matthews lost her license before the sentencing even began. The notary who authenticated the forged documents was arrested too. In court, Monica said, "We were trying to save her." The judge didn't even blink. "You created an elaborate fiction to steal from your sister. That isn't intervention. That's conspiracy." 18 months in prison for Monica, 5 years probation for Patrick, probation and fines for my parents, community service for the notary, and restitution, almost $80,000 for me. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like burial. When the verdict was read, my mother wailed, "We've lost both our daughters." I didn't correct her. The woman she used to call her daughter no longer existed. They killed her when they decided her success was evidence of sin. After court, Ethan and I walked out into the sunlight. He asked quietly, "You okay?" "No," I said, "but I'm free." We stood in the parking lot for a long time, not speaking. Then he said, "You should open that Margot tonight." "I think I will." That night, I uncorked the 1982 Chateau Margaux they'd tried to sell. The cork came out clean. No crumble, no resistance. The scent hit like memory and defiance all at once. I poured one glass, looked at my cellar walls, and whispered, "You survived, so did I." I raised my glass to the cameras, the court files, the neighbor who called, and the truth that had refused to stay buried. The cellar hummed quietly, a reminder that peace doesn't mean quiet. It means no one else has a key. Freedom didn't arrive as fireworks. It came as silence, the kind that finally feels earned. 6 months after the trial, I stood in my cellar again, barefoot, hair still damp from the rain outside. The bottles glowed softly under the new lighting I'd installed. Golden halos reflected off glass shoulders. For the first time in a year, I could breathe in here without flinching. Every shelf was where it belonged. Every label faced forward, and every sound, from the low hum of the climate system to the soft click of the door sealing shut, was mine. The restitution money came in 2 installments. My lawyer called it a symbolic gesture. I called it funding for new locks and a therapist who doesn't flinch when I mention family. I used part of it to rebuild the tasting counter Monica had smashed during the break-in. The granite gleamed again, cooler than forgiveness. And beside it, I framed a simple line on the wall. "Blood may be thicker than wine, but wine doesn't try to steal your house." Ethan thought it was darkly funny. I thought it was the truest thing I'd ever written. My parents moved 3 towns over after sentencing. They send letters sometimes, all written in the same trembling tone of false peace. "We forgive you. Family is forever. When you're ready to come home, our door is open." Every word is dipped in nostalgia and denial. I don't reply. I don't need to. Some stories end not with closure, but with distance. Monica writes from prison, too. Long, handwritten pages full of excuses and self-pity. "You have no idea how hard things were for us. We did it for your own good. You'll understand someday." I've learned to let her words burn themselves out in the mailbox. Sometimes Ethan reads them first, just to spare me. Sometimes we make a joke out of it. New episode of family crime drama just dropped. But most days I just recycle them unopened. Paper doesn't deserve to keep that kind of power. Ethan and I are still together. He doesn't talk about what happened unless I do, and he never treats me like a fragile thing. The first time he came over after the sentencing, he stood in front of the cellar door for a long moment. "You keeping it locked?" he asked. "Always." "Good," he said, "but open it anyway. Let's make new memories in there." So we did. We opened the 1982 Margaux, the bottle Monica had tried to sell for cash. The cork released with a sigh, like the cellar, exhaling after holding its breath too long. We poured 2 glasses and stood side by side under the amber light. It was rich, smoky, velvet soft, everything I'd dreamed it would be when I first bought it. We didn't talk much. Some wines deserve silence. A few months later, I completed my Level 3 sommelier certification. My instructor congratulated me with a grin. "You've got an insane palate, Avery. You should teach." I laughed. "I already did," I said. "Just not in a classroom." Because in a twisted way, my family taught me everything about tasting life. The bitterness of betrayal, the dryness of disbelief, the surprising sweetness of survival. The house feels like mine again. But it's quieter now. Not in a lonely way, just settled. The laughter I hear comes from people who actually know me. Ethan's friends, a few coworkers, even Lena, who reached out after testifying in court. She told the judge I was the most responsible drinker she'd ever met. Afterward, she apologized for ever picking up my mother's call. "It's okay," I told her. "They fooled me longer than they fooled you." Now sometimes she joins our tastings, and the three of us laugh over flights of Cabernet and second chances. Therapy helped, not to forgive them, that word still tastes sour, but to stop bleeding energy into their absence. My therapist said something that stuck. Sometimes justice is the quiet after the storm, not the apology that never comes. She was right. Justice wasn't the verdict. It was the fact that I could walk into my cellar, pour a glass, and not feel like a defendant in my own home. Every month, on the date the trial ended, I open one bottle from the section Monica almost emptied. Sometimes I share it with friends. Sometimes I drink alone with music low and the window open. Each sip feels like defiance, but also gratitude, proof that I survived something meant to erase me. My collection now stands at 850 bottles, each cataloged, insured, and entirely mine. Not because I'm obsessive, but because it's how I honor what they tried to steal, my autonomy. People ask sometimes if I'll ever speak to my family again. I tell them the truth. Maybe someday, if they ever learn the difference between help and control. But I doubt it. Some people only feel whole when they're cutting pieces out of you. So I build my own version of family. Chosen, patient, kind. The ones who don't need my downfall to prove their love. And when we toast, I always raise my glass to the same thing. To peace, to proof, to never doubting your own story again. The cellar hums softly in agreement, its air cool and clean. I take a sip. It tastes like oak and earth and something rarer, freedom.